The Great Lakes hold 1/5 of the world's fresh surface water, a vast inland sea system so large that it shapes regional weather patterns, supports major shipping routes, and serves as the border between the United States and Canada for hundreds of miles. These 5 connected lakes, Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario, contain approximately 6 quadrillion gallons of water, enough to cover the entire continental United States to a depth of nearly 10 feet. They are among the largest freshwater systems on Earth, and beneath their cold, clear waters lies a landscape that few people ever see. This underwater landscape includes shipwrecks from centuries of navigation, geological features shaped by ancient glaciers, and ecosystems adapted to the unique conditions of these deep, cold lakes. But according to certain researchers, amateur archaeologists, and proponents of alternative history, the lakes conceal something far more mysterious: the remains of ancient civilizations, structures built by unknown peoples thousands of years before recorded history, now submerged beneath hundreds of feet of water. The most specific and widely circulated of these claims focuses on Lake Michigan, the only Great Lake lying entirely within the United States. Here, at depths ranging from 40 to several hundred feet, various investigators claim to have discovered stone structures that appear too regular to be natural formations. The most famous of these alleged discoveries is a formation at the bottom of Grand Traverse Bay, where sonar imaging supposedly revealed a circle of stones bearing resemblance to Stonehenge, complete with what some claim is a stone bearing a carving of a mastodon, an extinct Ice Age elephant that disappeared from North America over 10,000 years ago. If these claims were true, they would revolutionize our understanding of North American prehistory. They would suggest that complex societies capable of monumental construction existed in the Great Lakes region far earlier than currently believed, that these societies possessed the organization and technology to quarry, transport, and arrange massive stones, and that their works were subsequently submerged as lake levels rose following the last ice age. The implications would extend beyond archaeology to touch on questions of human migration, technological development, and the relationship between climate change and human societies. But are these claims true? Do ancient stone structures really lie beneath Lake Michigan, testifying to lost civilizations and suppressed history? Or are they the result of misidentification of natural features, wishful thinking, poor quality sonar interpretation, and the human tendency to see patterns and purpose where none exist? Throughout this investigation, we will examine the geological history of the Great Lakes and how they came to exist in their current form, the genuine archaeological record of human occupation in the region, the specific claims about underwater structures, and what evidence supports or contradicts them, and the broader context of how such legends develop and persist despite lacking solid evidentiary foundation. Before we dive beneath the surface of Lake Michigan to examine what actually lies there, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us investigate these mysteries with the thorough, critical analysis they deserve, separating genuine historical questions from unsupported speculation. Now, let us begin our journey into the depths, examining not the civilization we imagine might be there, but what the evidence actually reveals. To understand claims about ancient structures now submerged beneath the Great Lakes, we must first understand the lakes themselves, how they formed, how their levels have changed over time, and what their history reveals about when human-built structures could or could not have been placed in areas now underwater. The Great Lakes are young in geological terms, products of the last major glaciation that shaped much of North America. Their story begins not millions, but merely thousands of years ago, during the Pleistocene epoch, when massive ice sheets advanced and retreated across the continent in cycles driven by variations in Earth's orbit and tilt. The most recent glacial advance, known as the Wisconsin glaciation, began approximately 85,000 years ago and reached its maximum extent about 20,000 years ago. At this peak, ice sheets over a mile thick covered Canada and extended south into what is now the northern United States, reaching as far south as present-day Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. The sheer weight of this ice, estimated at trillions of tons, depressed the Earth's crust beneath it, while the ice itself acted as a massive bulldozer, scouring the landscape and carving deep basins into the bedrock. The basins that would become the Great Lakes were carved along zones of weakness in the underlying bedrock, areas where softer sedimentary rocks overlay harder Precambrian formations, or where pre-existing river valleys provided pathways that glacial ice could deepen and widen. The Lake Superior Basin, for instance, follows an ancient rift valley over 1 billion years old. The other lake basins similarly exploited geological structures, with advancing and retreating ice deepening pre-existing depressions into the massive basins we see today. As the climate warmed beginning around 18,000 years ago, the ice sheets began their retreat. This retreat was not steady, but occurred in fits and starts, with temporary readvances interrupting the overall pattern of melting. As the ice margin retreated northward, meltwater pooled in the newly exposed basins, creating the proto-Great Lakes, bodies of water that were similar to, but not identical to, the modern lakes. The history of these glacial lakes is complex and still being refined by researchers studying ancient shorelines, sediment cores, and other geological evidence. What is clear is that lake levels, shoreline positions, and even the routing of drainage changed dramatically over the period, from about 14,000 years ago to the present. As ice dams failed, new outlets opened, and the land itself rebounded from the removal of the ice sheet's weight. This process, called glacial isostatic rebound, continues today at measurable rates. Areas that were beneath the thickest ice are still rising as the Earth's crust slowly returns to equilibrium, while areas at the margins of glaciation are subsiding slightly. This ongoing adjustment means that shorelines have been and continue to be dynamic, rising in some areas and falling in others. The water levels in the Great Lakes have fluctuated considerably over the past 14,000 years. During some periods, lake levels were substantially lower than today, in some basins, hundreds of feet lower. During other periods, levels were higher. These fluctuations were driven by several factors. the opening and closing of different drainage routes as the ice retreated and the land rebounded, variations in precipitation and evaporation, and connections between different lake basins that sometimes existed and sometimes were blocked. One particularly significant period for understanding potential underwater archaeology is the period from roughly 10,000 to 70 years ago, when Lake Michigan and Lake Huron were part of a single large lake called Lake Chippewa, which stood significantly lower than present levels. Estimates suggest anywhere from 200 to 350 feet lower, depending on location and specific timing. During this low stand period, large areas of what is now lake bottom were exposed land, including areas of the present-day lake floor that are now under 100 feet or more of water. This means that humans living in the Great Lakes region during this period could have inhabited, hunted, built structures, and left artifacts in areas that are now underwater. This is not speculative, it is established fact. The question is not whether people could have been active in areas now submerged, but rather what evidence exists of such activity and how to interpret that evidence. Following the low stand period, lake levels rose as drainage patterns changed and as climate conditions affected the balance of inflow and outflow. By approximately 5,000 years ago, the Great Lakes had reached levels and configurations generally similar to the present, though minor fluctuations have continued and will continue as climate and drainage patterns evolve. The modern Great Lakes have maximum depths ranging from 210 feet in Lake Erie to 1,332 feet in Lake Superior. Lake Michigan, our primary focus, has a maximum depth of 923 feet and an average depth of 279 feet. The underwater topography is complex, with deep basins, underwater ridges, shoals, and ancient river channels all visible in bathymetric surveys. Understanding this geological history is crucial for evaluating claims about underwater structures. If someone claims to have found a stone circle at a depth of 40 feet in Lake Michigan, we can ask, when was that location last above water? The answer, based on geological evidence, is approximately 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, during the post-glacial low stand period. This time frame is important because it constrains when humans could have built structures in that location. It must have been during the relatively brief window when that spot was dry land, before rising waters submerged it. This geological context also tells us what kinds of preservation we might expect. Structures submerged for 7,000 to 10,000 years would have been subjected to considerable forces: wave action during the initial transgression, ice scour during winter freezing, biological activity, and the gradual accumulation of sediments. Wood and organic materials would be unlikely to survive. Stone structures might remain, but they would likely show significant weathering, colonization by aquatic organisms, and possible displacement by ice or currents, unless they were in particularly protected locations. The human history of the Great Lakes region extends back to the end of the last ice age, when the first people moved into the newly deglaciated landscape in pursuit of game, plant resources, and opportunities offered by a changing environment. Understanding this actual indigenous history is essential both for appreciating the genuine richness of the region's past and for contextualizing claims about mysterious underwater structures. The earliest confirmed human presence in the Great Lakes region dates to approximately 11,000 to 13,000 years ago during the Paleo-Indian period. These were mobile hunter-gatherer groups who pursued now-extinct Ice Age megafauna, including mastodons, mammoths, giant beavers, and other species. Paleo-Indian sites are rare and often consist of scattered stone tools rather than substantial structures, reflecting the mobile lifestyles of these early peoples. However, the presence of Paleo-Indian peoples in the Great Lakes region during the late Pleistocene and early Holocene means that they were living in the landscape during the same period when large areas of what is now Lake Bottom were exposed dry land. If people were hunting caribou or mammoths across areas that are now 100 feet under Lake Michigan, they could have left artifacts, kill sites, or camps in those locations. This is the legitimate archaeological basis for interest in submerged sites in the Great Lakes. The Archaic period, spanning roughly 10,000 to 3,000 years ago, saw fundamental changes in indigenous cultures as they adapted to post-glacial environments. Megafauna went extinct or retreated northward, forests replaced tundra and parkland, and human populations developed increasingly sophisticated adaptations to regional ecosystems. Population densities increased, settlements became larger and more permanent, and trade networks developed connecting groups across considerable distances. Archaeological sites from the Archaic period are much more common than Paleo-Indian sites and include not just scattered tools, but also substantial features: hearths, food processing areas, burial sites, and caches of goods. The Great Lakes themselves became central to subsistence strategies, with fishing becoming increasingly important and watercraft use becoming essential for exploiting the resources of the lakes and for transportation. Crucially, the early and middle Archaic periods overlap with the time when lake levels were lower than present. People living during this time could have occupied areas of shoreline, river mouths, and islands that are now submerged. They could have established fishing camps, built fish weirs or traps in shallow waters, or created other structures in locations that were subsequently drowned as lake levels rose. The Woodland period, approximately 3,000 to 1,000 years ago, brought further cultural complexity, including pottery manufacture, the bow and arrow, burial mounds, and eventually agriculture. By this time, the Great Lakes had reached approximately their modern levels, so woodland period sites are generally where we would expect them to be based on current shorelines. However, minor fluctuations in lake levels mean that some woodland sites along ancient shorelines may now be in shallow water. The most recent pre-contact period in the Great Lakes region saw the development of diverse indigenous cultures, including the ancestors of the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, and other peoples who inhabited the region at the time of European contact, and whose descendants continue to live in the region today. These peoples maintained sophisticated knowledge of the lakes, their resources, and their dangers, developing technologies and practices for navigating and exploiting what are, in effect, inland seas. Indigenous oral traditions from Great Lakes peoples include stories about the lakes themselves, their formation, their moods and dangers, and their central place in the geography and cosmology of the region. For the Ojibwe, Gitchigami, the Big Water, is central to origin stories and to understanding the people's relationship with the landscape. Other nations similarly have deep traditional knowledge about the lakes, encoded in stories, place names, and cultural practices. It is important to note that these genuine indigenous traditions do not include stories about lost civilizations building stone monuments that were subsequently submerged. The traditions recognize the lakes as powerful presences, as sources of sustenance and danger, and as beings with which humans must maintain proper relationships. But the idea of underwater stone circles or mastodon carvings comes not from indigenous tradition, but from modern claims by non-indigenous researchers. When proponents of underwater structure theories invoke Native American traditions, they are typically either misunderstanding indigenous concepts about the spiritual significance of the lakes or deliberately appropriating indigenous cultural authority to support claims that have no basis in actual indigenous knowledge. This appropriation is harmful, suggesting that indigenous peoples either did not understand their own landscape history or that their traditions confirm exotic theories when they do not. The actual archaeological record of indigenous presence in the Great Lakes region is rich and still being explored. New sites are discovered regularly, and new analytical techniques applied to previously excavated materials continue to refine understanding. But this genuine archaeology is based on physical evidence, artifacts, features, and sites that can be studied, dated, and interpreted using established methods. It does not support claims of mysterious civilizations or monuments beyond the capabilities attributed to pre-contact peoples. The arrival of European explorers, missionaries, and traders in the Great Lakes region beginning in the early 17th century initiated a period of dramatic change for indigenous peoples and began the process of European documentation of the lake's geography, resources, and indigenous inhabitants. Understanding this historical period helps establish what was known about the lakes at various times and reveals that no European sources describe discovering mysterious stone structures beneath the waters. French explorers were the first Europeans to extensively explore and document the Great Lakes. Samuel de Champlain heard reports of the lakes from indigenous informants in the early 1600s, though he did not personally visit them. Etienne Brulé, one of Champlain's associates, is believed to have reached Lake Huron by 1610 and may have seen Lake Superior. Jean Nicolet explored the western Great Lakes in 1634, reaching Green Bay and possibly beyond. The Jesuit missionaries who followed the explorers and traders produced extensive documentation of the region, including detailed maps, descriptions of indigenous peoples and their cultures, and accounts of the geography and natural history. These relations des Jesuits, annual reports sent back to France, provide invaluable historical records of the 17th century Great Lakes region. Notably, none of these early European accounts mention discovering stone circles, monuments, or other mysterious structures either on the shores or in the shallows of the lakes. The French were interested in geography, in resources for the fur trade, in indigenous peoples and their potential conversion to Christianity, and in asserting French claims to the territory. They documented what they observed in considerable detail, and the absence of any mention of underwater or shoreline stone monuments is significant. As French and later British and American control extended over the region, exploration and mapping became more systematic. Detailed hydrographic surveys were conducted to support navigation and to identify hazards. The lakes were sounded, their depths recorded, and their underwater topography gradually documented. Again, no reports of mysterious stone structures appear in this extensive body of work. The 19th century brought intensive development to the Great Lakes region, with rapid population growth, industrial development, and the rise of shipping as a major industry. The lakes became highways for bulk commodities, iron ore, coal, grain, and timber, moving between the industrial centers of the Midwest and East. Harbors were dredged and improved, breakwaters constructed, lighthouses erected, and shipping channels marked and maintained. This intensive use of the lakes meant that their shallower areas became well known to pilots, fishermen, harbor masters, and others whose livelihoods depended on detailed knowledge of underwater topography. Hazards like shoals, reefs, and submerged rocks were carefully noted and marked on charts. Yet no 19th century sources mention stone circles or other mysterious structures in Lake Michigan or the other lakes. Fishing became a major industry in the Great Lakes during the 19th century, with commercial fishermen working the waters intensively and developing detailed knowledge of bottom conditions, fish habitats, and underwater features. Fishermen using nets and trawls would have encountered unusual bottom structures if they existed in the areas being fished. While fishermen certainly encountered natural rock formations, shipwrecks, and other underwater features, there are no historical accounts of fishermen discovering mysterious stone monuments. The point of reviewing this history is not to prove that underwater structures absolutely do not exist. Absence of evidence in historical records is not definitive proof of absence, especially for features in deep water or in areas that were not intensively used. But the historical record's silence is significant given the extent of activity in and documentation of the Great Lakes over the past 4 centuries. If obvious stone monuments existed in accessible depths, they likely would have been noted by someone among the thousands of people who worked on and studied the lakes. The contemporary claims about mysterious underwater structures in Lake Michigan and other Great Lakes do not have their origins in historical indigenous tradition or in observations by early European explorers. Rather, they emerge from modern investigations using sonar and other remote sensing technologies, beginning primarily in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Understanding precisely what is being claimed and on what basis is essential for evaluating the assertions. The most famous and widely circulated claim involves a discovery in Grand Traverse Bay on the northeast arm of Lake Michigan. In 2007, Mark Hawley, a professor of underwater archaeology at Northwestern Michigan College, was conducting a sonar survey searching for shipwrecks in the bay when his equipment detected what appeared to be a pattern of stones on the lake bottom at a depth of approximately 40 feet. Holly and his colleagues investigated the sonar anomaly using remote-operated vehicles equipped with cameras. The images they obtained showed what appeared to be a roughly circular arrangement of stones, with one stone in particular seeming to bear markings that some interpreted as a carving of a mastodon. The stones appeared to be relatively large, several feet in diameter, and their arrangement in a rough circle led to comparisons with Stonehenge and other stone circles found in various parts of the world. Holly's discovery generated considerable media attention, with news outlets running stories about a possible ancient underwater Stonehenge in Lake Michigan. The alleged mastodon carving was particularly intriguing because mastodons became extinct in North America approximately 10 years ago, suggesting that if the carving was genuine and was contemporary with living mastodons, the stone circle would be of similar age, placing it in the Paleo-Indian period when lake levels were indeed lower and the site would have been above water. However, several crucial caveats must be noted about Holly's discovery. First, the investigation has never been published in peer-reviewed scientific literature. While Holly presented preliminary findings at conferences and spoke to media outlets, no detailed scientific paper with comprehensive data, methodology, and peer review has appeared. This is a significant red flag, as legitimate archaeological discoveries are subjected to peer review before being announced to the public. Second, the exact location of the site has not been publicly disclosed, ostensibly to protect it from disturbance and looting. While protecting site locations is sometimes appropriate, it also makes independent verification impossible. Other researchers cannot visit the site, conduct their own investigations, and confirm or challenge Holly's interpretation. Third, the quality of the images obtained is limited. Underwater photography in the Great Lakes is challenging due to low visibility, algae, and other factors. The images of the alleged stone circle and mastodon carving are grainy and ambiguous, open to multiple interpretations. What appears to some as a carved mastodon appears to others as natural rock texture and lichens or mineral staining that create pareidolia, the tendency to see meaningful images in random patterns. Fourth, professional archaeologists who have examined the available images and descriptions have generally expressed skepticism. The stones could be glacial erratics, rocks transporting and deposited by glacial ice that happen to have landed in a vaguely circular arrangement through natural processes. The alleged carving could be a combination of natural rock features and wishful interpretation. Without access to the site for detailed study, including close examination of the stones for evidence of working, precise measurement of the circle if it exists, and investigation of the surrounding context, definitive conclusions cannot be reached. Beyond Holly's Grand Traverse Bay discovery, other claims of underwater structures in the Great Lakes appear periodically. These include reports of stone walls, linear arrangements of rocks, and other features detected by sonar or observed by divers. In virtually all cases, these claims suffer from the same problems: limited documentation, absence of peer-reviewed publication, restricted access preventing independent verification, and the likelihood that natural geological features are being misidentified as artificial structures. A particularly important point about sonar interpretation deserves emphasis. Sonar, whether side-scan sonar, multi-beam sonar, or other variants, is a powerful tool for detecting underwater features, but interpreting sonar data requires expertise and is subject to artifacts and ambiguities. Natural rock formations can produce sonar signatures that appear geometric or artificial to inexperienced interpreters. Sonar shadows can create the appearance of straight edges where none exist. Without ground truthing, actually visiting the site with cameras or in person to confirm what the sonar is detecting, sonar images alone cannot definitively distinguish artificial from natural features. Moreover, there is a documented tendency for sonar operators searching for specific targets to interpret ambiguous signals as confirming what they hope to find. A person searching for underwater stone circles is more likely to interpret a vaguely circular arrangement of sonar returns as a stone circle than as a random cluster of glacial erratics. This confirmation bias affects even trained professionals and must be guarded against through rigorous methodology and skeptical peer review. The claims about underwater structures in the Great Lakes also need to be understood in the context of broader alternative archaeology narratives. Proponents often connect the alleged structures to theories about lost advanced civilizations, ancient transoceanic contact, or suppression of evidence by mainstream archaeology. The stone circles become evidence not just of local prehistoric activity, but of global networks of ancient monument builders or of knowledge systems that conventional archaeology refuses to acknowledge. This contextualization is important because it reveals that the underwater structure claims are not simply straightforward archaeological observations, but are embedded in larger ideological frameworks that challenge mainstream historical narratives. This does not automatically mean the claims are false, but it does mean they should be evaluated with awareness of the broader agendas they may serve, and with particular attention to whether evidence is being interpreted objectively or being forced to fit pre-existing theories. To properly evaluate the most famous claim of underwater structures in Lake Michigan, we must examine Mark Holley's Grand Traverse Bay discovery with appropriate critical rigor, considering both what the evidence might suggest and what alternative explanations could account for the observations. The reported discovery occurred during a systematic sonar survey of Grand Traverse Bay conducted in 2007. Holley and his team were using side-scan sonar to search for shipwrecks, a perfectly legitimate archaeological investigation given the Great Lakes' rich maritime history. The sonar equipment detected anomalies on the lake bottom that warranted investigation, and the team deployed remotely operated vehicles equipped with cameras to examine the features more closely. The images obtained showed what appeared to be stones arranged in a roughly circular pattern on the lake floor at approximately 40 feet depth. The arrangement was not a perfect circle, but rather an irregular clustering that some observers interpreted as intentional placement. The individual stones varied in size, with estimates ranging from 1 to several feet in diameter. They appeared to be resting on or partially embedded in the lake bottom sediment. One stone in particular attracted attention because it appeared to bear markings that some interpreted as a carved image of a mastodon. The mastodon interpretation was based on what seemed to be the outline of a large animal with a distinctive shape, a rounded body, columnar legs, and what might be interpreted as a trunk. If this interpretation was correct, it would be extraordinarily significant because it would suggest the carving was made when mastodons were still alive in the region over 10,000 years ago. However, several major problems emerge when we examine this interpretation critically. First, the image quality is poor. The photographs and video obtained from the ROV show a rock surface with various textures, shadows, and what might be biological growth or mineral staining. The supposed mastodon outline requires selective attention to certain features while ignoring others. Different observers looking at the same images might see entirely different patterns or might see nothing but a textured rock surface. This phenomenon, pareidolia, is well documented in psychology. The human visual system is primed to recognize patterns, particularly faces and animal shapes, even in random visual noise. We see faces in clouds, in rock formations, in the patterns of tree bark. We see meaningful shapes where none were intended. This tendency is amplified when we are looking for something specific. When we are told a rock might bear a mastodon carving, we become more likely to interpret ambiguous features as supporting that identification. Professional archaeologists who study rock art and petroglyphs use specific criteria to distinguish intentional carvings from natural features. These criteria include evidence of pecking or abrading, regular spacing and depth of incisions, clear intentional design elements, and contextual information about the cultural tradition producing the art. From the available images of the alleged mastodon carving, none of these criteria can be conclusively established. What appears as lines defining an animal shape could equally be natural cracks, weathering patterns, or the boundaries between different mineral compositions in the stone. Moreover, if the carving was indeed 10,000 years old and had been submerged for 7,000 to 9,000 years, we would expect significant weathering and colonization by aquatic organisms. Ancient carvings do sometimes survive underwater. There are verified examples from around the world, but they typically show clear evidence of their age and submersion. The alleged mastodon carving, as visible in the available images, does not obviously show these expected characteristics, though the image quality is too poor to make definitive determinations. The stone circle itself presents similar interpretive challenges. The arrangement of the stones is roughly circular, but it is not geometrically precise or obviously artificial. Glacial processes are fully capable of creating clusters of stones that appear organized to casual observation. As glaciers advance and retreat, they transport rocks of various sizes and deposit them when the ice melts. These deposits can create patterns that seem non-random, including linear arrangements along ice margins, clusters in depressions, and even vaguely circular arrangements in certain circumstances. For the Grand Traverse Bay stones to be convincingly identified as an intentional monument rather than a natural glacial deposit, we would need several lines of evidence. The stones should show evidence of being quarried or shaped, tool marks, regular forms, or types of stone not naturally occurring in the immediate area. They should be arranged in a pattern that is clearly intentional, a precise circle, astronomical alignments, or regular spacing that would be vanishingly unlikely to occur by chance. The site should show evidence of associated human activity, artifacts, fire features, or modifications to the surrounding area. And ideally, there should be chronological control through dating techniques applied to materials associated with the structure. None of this definitive evidence has been presented for the Grand Traverse Bay site. The stones might be intentionally arranged, but the available documentation does not demonstrate this convincingly. They might be natural glacial erratics that happen to form a vaguely circular cluster. Without access to the site for detailed study, including close-up examination of the stones, measurement of the circle's geometry, and investigation of the surrounding context, the question cannot be definitively resolved. The decision not to publish detailed findings in peer-reviewed literature is particularly problematic. Peer review is the process by which scientific claims are evaluated by other experts in the field before being accepted as established knowledge. It is not perfect. Flawed studies sometimes pass peer review, and good work is sometimes initially rejected. But it is the best system we have for ensuring that research meets minimum standards of methodology, evidence, and reasoning. When researchers claim to have made significant discoveries but do not submit their work to peer review, several explanations are possible. They might believe their evidence is preliminary and want to conduct further investigation before publication. They might be protecting the site from looters or treasure hunters. They might believe that mainstream journals would reject their work due to bias. Or they might recognize that their evidence would not withstand rigorous peer review and prefer to announce findings through media outlets that do not require the same evidential standards. In Holly's case, over 15 years have passed since the initial discovery, and still no peer-reviewed publication has appeared. This extended delay, combined with restricted access to the site that prevents independent verification, creates a situation where the discovery exists in a kind of evidentiary limbo, announced to the public and widely discussed, but not subjected to the scrutiny that would allow the scientific community to properly evaluate it. Understanding the natural geological processes that shape the underwater landscape of the Great Lakes is essential for evaluating claims about artificial structures. The lake's bottoms are not blank slates, but complex terrains shaped by glacial action, erosion, sedimentation, and ongoing geological processes. Many features that might seem mysterious or artificial to casual observers have straightforward natural explanations. Glacial erratics are among the most relevant features for understanding possible stone circles or arrangements. An erratic is a rock that was transporting from its original location by glacial ice and deposited elsewhere when the ice melted. The Great Lakes region is littered with glacial erratics, ranging from small pebbles to massive boulders weighing hundreds of tons. The distribution of erratics is not random, but follows patterns related to ice flow directions, the locations of source outcrops, and the dynamics of glacial advance and retreat. However, at local scales, erratics can appear to be arranged in ways that seem non-random. Clusters of erratics can form in depressions where meltwater concentrated them. Linear arrangements can form along ice margins, and even circular or arc-shaped arrangements can result from particular patterns of ice flow and melting. Anyone who has spent time in formerly glaciated regions is familiar with the appearance of erratic fields. In some areas, erratics are so numerous and so apparently organized that they have inspired folklore and speculation about ancient construction. New England has numerous mystery walls and stone chambers that some claim are evidence of pre-Columbian contact by Europeans, but which archaeologists have shown are colonial-era agricultural features or natural stone arrangements misinterpreted by enthusiastic amateurs. The Great Lakes basins, having been directly beneath massive ice sheets, contain countless erratics both on land and on the lake bottoms. These erratics vary in composition depending on where the ice picked them up: granite from the Canadian Shield, limestone from local bedrock, sandstone from various formations, and many other rock types. They also vary enormously in size and shape. When erratics are submerged, they can be difficult to distinguish from placed stones without close examination. Both natural and placed stones appear on sonar as hard returns against the softer sediment background. Both can be large, angular, and apparently organized. The distinction requires looking for evidence of human activity, quarrying marks, shaping, arrangement in patterns too precise to be natural, or association with artifacts and features that indicate human presence. Another relevant geological feature is outcropping bedrock. In many areas of the Great Lakes, bedrock is exposed on the lake bottom, sometimes forming ridges, platforms, or other distinctive features. Limestone bedrock in particular can weather into joint patterns that create apparently linear or geometric arrangements. Differential erosion can create the appearance of stacked stones, where actually a single bedrock formation has been weathered along bedding planes or joints. From sonar or from low-resolution underwater cameras, exposed bedrock can appear artificial, especially when it forms linear features or right-angle junctions where joint systems intersect. Only close examination, revealing the continuous nature of the rock and the geological rather than artificial characteristics of the features, can definitively identify such formations as natural rather than built. Post-glacial and ongoing erosion also shapes the underwater landscape. Currents move sediments, sometimes exposing buried stones and sometimes burying exposed ones. Winter ice, when it forms in shallower areas, can shift stones through ice push, the force of expanding ice sheets that can move considerable masses of rock. Over thousands of years, these processes can create, modify, and destroy patterns on the lake bottom. Understanding these natural processes is not meant to definitively explain every claimed underwater structure in the Great Lakes as natural. Rather, it is meant to establish that natural processes can and do create features that might appear artificial to observers who are not familiar with glacial geology and underwater geomorphology. The burden of proof rests with those claiming artificial structures to demonstrate that the features cannot be explained by natural processes and genuinely require human construction as an explanation. For the Grand Traverse Bay site specifically, the possibility that the alleged stone circle is actually a cluster of glacial erratics is entirely plausible given the geological context. The depth at which it is located, approximately 40 feet, corresponds to areas that would have been exposed during the post-glacial low stand period around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. But this same area would also have been subject to glacial processes when ice was retreating from the region and could easily have accumulated erratics deposited as the ice melted. Without detailed examination, including geological analysis of the stones themselves, measurement of their positions to determine if the pattern is more regular than would be expected from random deposition, and investigation of the surrounding sediments and features, the question cannot be definitively resolved. But given the geological context and the frequency of glacial erratics in the region, the natural explanation is at least as plausible as the artificial one, and likely more so in the absence of strong evidence for human construction. While the claims about mysterious stone circles and ancient monuments remain unverified, the Great Lakes do contain genuine underwater archaeological sites that have been properly investigated using rigorous scientific methods. Examining these verified sites provides context for understanding what real underwater archaeology looks like and what kinds of evidence are required to establish that submerged features are indeed human-made rather than natural. The most extensively studied underwater archaeological sites in the Great Lakes are historic shipwrecks. The lakes contain thousands of wrecks spanning from early wooden sailing vessels to modern steel ships. These wrecks are valuable historical resources that provide information about shipbuilding technology, maritime commerce, navigation practices, and the events of particular sinkings. Many wrecks are protected as archaeological sites, and their study follows established protocols. Shipwreck archaeology demonstrates what underwater investigation should look like. Sites are located through systematic survey using sonar and other remote sensing technologies. Once located, they are documented through photography and video, measured and mapped, and sometimes excavated to recover artifacts or to understand structural details. Findings are published in peer-reviewed journals and technical reports, making the evidence available for other researchers to examine and critique. Site locations are typically made public to allow recreational diving, while also being protected through legal mechanisms to prevent looting. Beyond shipwrecks, the Great Lakes also contains submerged terrestrial archaeological sites, locations that were occupied by humans when lake levels were lower and that are now underwater. These sites are precisely the kind of underwater archaeology that is relevant to claims about stone circles and monuments, and studying them reveals what genuine submerged indigenous sites look like and how they are investigated. One of the most significant verified underwater archaeological sites in the Great Lakes is located in Lake Huron, not Lake Michigan, but it provides important context for understanding the region's underwater archaeology. In the Alpine-Arambali Ridge area of Lake Huron, researchers have documented a submerged landscape that includes what appear to be ancient caribou hunting structures. The Alpine-Arambali Ridge is an underwater limestone ridge that connects the northern lower peninsula of Michigan to the northern part of the upper peninsula and continues toward the Canadian shore. During the post-glacial low stand period, this ridge was a dry land bridge that caribou would have used during their seasonal migrations. Archaeological evidence suggests that Paleo-Indian and early archaic peoples built drive lanes and ambush points along this ridge to hunt caribou as they migrated across the landscape. The evidence for these hunting structures includes linear arrangements of stones that appear to function as barriers directing game movement, and clusters of stones in positions suitable for hunters to hide and ambush passing caribou. These features are at depths ranging from 100 to 300 feet and are believed to be approximately 9,000 to 10,000 years old, dating to the period when the area was above water and caribou were present in the region. The Lake Huron caribou hunting structures have been investigated using systematic methodologies, including high-resolution multi-beam sonar, ROV photography and video, and geological analysis of the stones and surrounding sediments. Researchers have documented the structure's positions, measured their dimensions, analyzed the types of stones used, and investigated the geological context to determine whether the arrangements are consistent with natural processes or require human construction as an explanation. The published research on these structures presents evidence supporting their interpretation as hunting features. The stones are arranged in patterns that make functional sense for directing and intercepting moving game. The types of stones used appear to have been selected and transporting rather than simply deposited naturally. And the locations and orientations of the features are consistent with hunting strategies documented ethnographically among caribou hunters. Importantly, the research also acknowledges uncertainties and alternative interpretations, presenting the evidence for peer review and critique rather than making absolute claims. This is what proper underwater archaeology looks like. Systematic survey using appropriate technology, thorough documentation, analysis using multiple lines of evidence, publication in peer-reviewed journals, and acknowledgement of uncertainties and limitations. The Lake Huron caribou structures are not presented as mysterious monuments or lost civilizations, but as functional features created by people adapting to their environment, using the best available interpretations of physical evidence. Other verified underwater sites in the Great Lakes include submerged shorelines with scattered artifacts, fishing-related features like stone fishing weirs in shallow areas, and possible camp locations identified through clusters of tools and processing debris. None of these sites involve megalithic monuments or elaborate stone structures of the kind claimed at Grand Traverse Bay. This absence is telling. If stone circles, monuments, or other elaborate constructions were a common feature of indigenous lifeways during the period when now submerged areas were dry land. We would expect to find multiple examples in the systematic surveys that have been conducted. The fact that verified underwater indigenous sites in the Great Lakes consist primarily of utilitarian features, hunting structures, fishing installations, and artifact scatters from camps, rather than monuments, suggests that elaborate stone construction was not a prominent activity during the relevant time period. This does not prove that the Grand Traverse Bay stones are not an intentional monument. It is possible that they represent a unique or rare example of monumental construction that has not been found elsewhere. But the archaeological context makes the claim less plausible than it might otherwise be, and it increases the evidentiary burden that should be met before accepting the monument interpretation. Understanding the technologies and methodologies used to study underwater sites helps evaluate claims about submerged structures and distinguish between rigorous investigation and superficial examination that might produce ambiguous or misleading results. Sonar technology is the primary tool for detecting underwater features and mapping lake bottom topography. Several types of sonar are commonly used in underwater archaeology. Side-scan sonar transmits sound waves perpendicular to the direction of travel, creating images of the lake bottom to either side of the survey vessel. Objects projecting above the bottom create shadows in the sonar image, making them visible as distinct features. Side-scan sonar is excellent for locating wrecks, large rocks, and other features, but provides limited information about depth and precise three-dimensional geometry. Multi-beam sonar uses multiple sonar beams simultaneously to create detailed three-dimensional maps of the lake bottom. This technology can produce high-resolution bathymetric data showing the exact topography of the bottom, including subtle features that might not be visible in side-scan sonar images. Multi-beam sonar has become increasingly important in underwater archaeology because it provides the kind of detailed data needed to distinguish natural from artificial features and to understand site context. However, sonar data alone, whether side-scan or multi-beam, cannot definitively determine whether a feature is natural or artificial. Sonar tells us about shape and position, but not about the geological or archaeological characteristics that distinguish placed stones from natural rocks, worked surfaces from natural weathering, or intentional arrangements from coincidental patterns. Sonar is essential for locating features of interest, but it must be followed by ground truthing, actually visiting the features to examine them directly. Ground truthing in underwater contexts can be accomplished through several methods. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, are uncrewed submersibles equipped with cameras and sometimes with manipulator arms, lights, and scientific instruments. ROVs can be operated from surface vessels, allowing investigators to examine features at any depth without the risks and limitations of human diving. Modern ROVs can provide high-quality video and still photography, take measurements, and collect samples. For sites in shallower water, human divers can conduct investigations directly. Archaeological divers use techniques adapted from terrestrial archaeology, mapping, photography, measurement, and systematic documentation, but modified for the underwater environment. Diving is generally limited to depths of less than 130 feet for conventional scuba and requires specialized training and equipment for greater depths. For investigating whether a stone feature is natural or artificial, several types of analysis are essential. Close examination of the stones themselves can reveal evidence of quarrying or shaping, percussion marks, grinding facets, or forms that are clearly artificial rather than natural. The type of stone can indicate whether it is locally occurring or was transporting from elsewhere, which bears on the question of intentional placement. The arrangement of stones can be measured precisely to determine whether patterns are more regular than would be expected from natural processes. Geological context is equally important. Are the stones resting on bedrock, on glacial till, or on more recent sediments? What is the stratigraphy of sediments surrounding the stones, and what does it tell us about when the stones were emplaced and whether they have been disturbed since? Are there associated features like fire pits, artifact concentrations, or other evidence of human activity? Dating techniques can provide chronological control. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials associated with features can establish when human activity occurred at a site. Optically stimulated luminescence can date sediments, revealing when they were last exposed to sunlight and thus providing information about when they were deposited and whether features are buried or exposed. These techniques require collecting appropriate samples and conducting laboratory analyses. Critically, all of this work should be conducted systematically and documented thoroughly so that other researchers can evaluate the evidence and conclusions. Field notes, photographs, maps, measurements, sample locations, and analytical data should all be preserved and made available through publication and archival deposit. This transparency is what distinguishes science from speculation. When we compare the methodologies of proper underwater archaeology with what is publicly known about the Grand Traverse Bay investigation, the contrast is stark. A preliminary sonar survey detected an anomaly, and ROV cameras were deployed to examine it. Some images were obtained, and interpretations were offered to media outlets. But systematic mapping, detailed examination of the stones, geological analysis of context, dating of sediments or associated materials, and peer-reviewed publication have not occurred, or if they have occurred, the results have not been made public. This methodological inadequacy does not prove the claims are false, but it means they remain unverified and should be treated as preliminary observations rather than as established discoveries. The scientific community requires much more rigorous documentation before accepting that unusual features are indeed what initial interpretations suggest, rather than natural formations misidentified or wishfully interpreted. The Great Lakes underwater structure claims do not exist in isolation, but are part of a broader pattern of similar claims from underwater locations around the world. Examining this pattern reveals commonalities that help us understand the psychological, cultural, and sometimes commercial factors that sustain such claims despite lacking solid evidentiary foundations. Similar claims have been made about underwater structures off the coast of Cuba, where sonar surveys allegedly detected megalithic structures at depths of over 2,000 feet, supposedly evidence of a lost civilization drowned when sea levels rose at the end of the Ice Age. The Bimini Road off the Bahamas has been claimed as an ancient paved road or harbor works, supposedly evidence of Atlantis, though geological investigation has shown it to be natural beach rock formations. Claimed underwater cities off the coasts of India, Japan, and the Mediterranean have all been promoted in alternative archaeology literature, but have failed to withstand critical examination. These various claims share common features. They typically involve sonar or underwater camera images of ambiguous quality that show features which could be interpreted as artificial, but could equally be natural. They are often promoted through popular media rather than through peer-reviewed scientific publication. They are frequently connected to larger alternative history narratives about lost civilizations, ancient advanced technologies, or suppressed knowledge. And they tend to resist definitive resolution because site access is restricted, detailed investigation is not conducted, or results of investigation are not publicly released. The psychological appeal of such claims is understandable. The idea that ancient civilizations built monuments now lost beneath the waves taps into deep fascinations with lost worlds, with the passage of time, and with the possibility that official history is incomplete or incorrect. There is a romantic appeal to imagining divers discovering the remains of Atlantis or other legendary places, revealing that the myths were based on real events. The ocean and large lakes also hold genuine mysteries. The vast majority of the sea floor has never been seen by human eyes, and new discoveries are made regularly. This genuine potential for discovery makes it psychologically plausible that major findings might be waiting in unexplored areas. The Great Lakes, while more thoroughly explored than most ocean areas, still contain areas that have not been systematically surveyed, creating space for speculation about what might be found. Commercial and attention-seeking motivations also play a role. Books, documentaries, and media appearances about mysterious underwater discoveries generate revenue and fame for their promoters. Even academic researchers may find that sensational claims about Stonehenge-like structures attract more attention and funding opportunities than straightforward reports about glacial erratics or utilitarian fishing structures. These incentives can lead to overstated claims, premature announcements, and resistance to criticism that might deflate the mystery. The structure of belief also sustains such claims. Once someone has publicly committed to a position that a feature is an ancient monument, for example, psychological factors make it difficult to revise that position even in the face of contrary evidence. Cognitive dissonance leads us to reinterpret evidence to fit our existing beliefs rather than revising beliefs to match evidence. Confirmation bias leads us to notice and remember information that supports our beliefs while dismissing or forgetting contradictory information. Social factors reinforce these individual psychological tendencies. Communities form around shared belief in mysteries and alternative histories. These communities provide identity, belonging, and mutual reinforcement. Expressing doubt or skepticism can result in social rejection from the community, creating pressure to maintain belief even when private doubts emerge. Understanding these broader patterns does not automatically mean any particular claim is false. Each claim must be evaluated on its own evidence. But awareness of the pattern helps us approach claims with appropriate skepticism, demanding rigorous evidence before accepting extraordinary interpretations, and being alert to the various factors beyond pure evidence that can motivate and sustain dubious claims. For the Great Lakes specifically, we should note that the region's actual indigenous and historical archaeology is rich and fascinating without requiring mysterious monuments. The deep history of human presence, the sophisticated adaptations to the lake's environment, the complex trade networks connecting the region to distant areas, the transformations brought by European contact, all of this provides more than enough genuine history to engage our interest and warrant continued research. While the claims about mysterious underwater monuments remain unverified and dubious, the Great Lakes underwater landscape does contain genuine mysteries and important research questions that deserve investigation and resources. Shifting focus from imaginary monuments to real archaeological and geological questions reveals areas where meaningful discovery and increased understanding are genuinely possible. The submerged post-glacial landscapes of the Great Lakes represent a largely unexplored archaeological frontier. During the period from roughly 10,000 to 7,000 years ago, when lake levels were significantly lower than present, people lived on, traveled across, and exploited resources from areas that are now underwater. These submerged landscapes potentially contain campsites, hunting locations, fishing spots, quarry sites where stone tools were manufactured, and travel routes connecting different regions. Systematically surveying these submerged landscapes using modern technologies could reveal information about Paleo-Indian and early archaic lifeways that is not available from terrestrial sites. Submerged sites may be better preserved than terrestrial sites in some ways, protected from agricultural plowing, development, and surface erosion that damage or destroy land sites. They may contain organic materials preserved in oxygen-depleted sediments. And they may be located in areas that were particularly productive or strategic, revealing settlement patterns and resource use strategies. The Lake Huron caribou hunting structures demonstrate the potential of this research. Similar systematic surveys of other areas of the Great Lakes, where post-glacial landscapes are now submerged, could identify additional hunting structures, fishing installations, or other archaeological features. This work requires significant resources, vessel time, sophisticated sonar systems, ROV deployment, and expert personnel. But the potential payoff in terms of understanding early indigenous adaptations is substantial. Understanding the geological history of lake level changes is another area of active research, with implications for archaeology, ecology, and contemporary environmental management. Precisely when were different areas exposed or submerged? How rapidly did water levels change? What were the mechanisms? Outlet routing changes, climate variation, post-glacial meltwater pulses that drove these changes? Answering these questions requires studying ancient shorelines, analyzing sediment cores, dating organic materials from various elevations, and modeling hydrological processes. This geological research provides the chronological framework needed for underwater archaeology. It tells us when people could have been active in different areas, what the environment was like when those areas were occupied, and how rising water levels would have affected human populations and their movements. It also provides insights into how the Great Lakes system responds to climate change, which has contemporary relevance as we face human-caused climate warming. The ecology of submerged landscapes is another frontier. What biological communities inhabit areas of the lake bottom that are former terrestrial landscapes? How does the substrate, whether bedrock, glacial till, or ancient soil horizons, affect the distribution of aquatic organisms? Can we detect signatures of ancient terrestrial ecosystems in the characteristics of modern lake bottom communities? These questions connect ecology, geology, and environmental history in ways that increase understanding of how ecosystems develop and change over long time scales. The maritime history of the Great Lakes also offers ongoing research opportunities. While major shipwreck sites are often known, many smaller vessels and incidents are poorly documented or entirely unknown. Systematic survey could locate these wrecks and provide historical information. Moreover, studying how wrecks deteriorate in the specific conditions of the Great Lakes, cold, fresh water with seasonal ice, provides data relevant to underwater cultural resource management and heritage preservation. Finally, there are important questions about public engagement with underwater cultural heritage. How can we make underwater sites accessible to public appreciation while protecting them from looting and damage? What technologies, virtual reality, remotely broadcast ROV dives, museum exhibits, can bring underwater discoveries to audiences who will never dive themselves? How do we balance the legitimate interest in exploration with the need to preserve fragile resources? All of these legitimate research questions offer opportunities for genuine discovery and increased understanding. They require rigorous methods, expert knowledge, and adequate resources. They build on established knowledge while pushing into new areas. And they produce results that can be verified, critiqued, and built upon by other researchers. This is what actual archaeological and geological research looks like, and it is far more valuable than chasing dubious claims about underwater Stonehenges. Understanding why claims about underwater monuments and lost civilizations exert such powerful appeal requires examining the psychological needs and cognitive tendencies that make these narratives compelling even in the absence of supporting evidence. The Great Lakes underwater structure claims tap into deep currents of human psychology that operate largely beneath conscious awareness. At the most fundamental level, stories of lost civilizations appeal to our sense of mystery and our desire to believe that the world still contains undiscovered wonders. In an age where satellite imagery has mapped every square meter of Earth's surface, where remote corners of the globe are accessible through tourism, and where information about distant places is instantly available through the internet, the sense that genuine terra incognita remains has largely disappeared. The familiar world can seem completely known, thoroughly explained, stripped of the mystery and possibility that characterized earlier eras. Underwater spaces represent one of the last frontiers where significant unknowns genuinely remain. The ocean depths are largely unexplored, and even large lakes contain areas that have never been systematically surveyed or seen by human eyes. This creates psychological space for the possibility of major discoveries, for the idea that something extraordinary might be waiting just beyond current knowledge. The appeal is not irrational. New discoveries are made regularly in underwater environments, from previously unknown shipwrecks to geological features to biological communities. The specific appeal of lost civilizations, as opposed to other types of underwater mysteries, connects to deeper narratives about human achievement, the passage of time, and the relationship between past and present. The idea that advanced societies once existed but were destroyed by cataclysm and forgotten speaks to anxieties about the fragility of our own civilization. If great civilizations of the past could fall and be lost to memory, what does that suggest about the permanence of our own achievements? But lost civilization narratives also offer a kind of comfort. They suggest that even if civilizations fall, their works may endure, waiting to be rediscovered and to teach us their wisdom. They imply that human achievement is more enduring and more significant than our individual mortality. The monuments remain even when the builders are gone, testifying to what humans can accomplish and preserving knowledge across the ages. The specific claim that stone monuments exist beneath the Great Lakes adds layers of meaning specific to North American contexts. For many Americans, particularly those of European descent, there is a sense of disconnection from deep history. European nations can point to cathedrals, castles, and monuments centuries old. Asian and Middle Eastern civilizations have even deeper material records. But Euro-American presence in North America is relatively recent, and the indigenous monuments that do exist are often not well known or are not claimed as part of a shared American heritage by non-indigenous people. Claims about ancient stone monuments in North America, whether the Great Lakes structures or similar claims elsewhere, can be seen as attempts to give the American landscape the same kind of deep history, mystery, and monumental heritage that other regions possess. If Stonehenge-like structures exist beneath Lake Michigan, then North America has its own ancient monuments as impressive as those of the Old World. This is psychologically satisfying for people who want their homeland to have the gravitas of ancient history. However, this desire is problematic because North America does have deep history and impressive indigenous achievements. The earthworks of Cahokia, the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde, the complex societies of the Pacific Northwest, the sophisticated agricultural systems of the Southwest. All of these represent significant human achievements by the indigenous peoples who built them. The problem is not that North America lacks ancient monuments, but that many Americans are ignorant of or uninterested in indigenous history, preferring instead to imagine lost civilizations disconnected from contemporary indigenous peoples. This brings us to a darker dimension of lost civilization narratives. By attributing impressive monuments to vanished peoples, whether Atlanteans, ancient Egyptians, or unnamed advanced civilizations, these narratives implicitly or explicitly diminish indigenous peoples and their ancestors. If the real builders of American monuments were lost super-civilizations, then contemporary indigenous peoples are positioned as recent arrivals or as peoples who declined from earlier heights, having no special connection to or claim on the landscape. This pattern has a long and ugly history. When European colonizers encountered impressive indigenous monuments and civilizations in the Americas, they frequently refused to believe that the ancestors of the peoples they were dispossessing could have created them. The mound builder myth in the 19th century United States attributed the impressive earthworks of the Mississippi and Ohio valleys to a vanished race of white people or to old world civilizations, explicitly denying that the indigenous peoples encountered by Europeans were descendants of the mound builders. This myth served political purposes, suggesting that current indigenous inhabitants had no more claim to the land than European settlers did. Modern lost civilization claims, including those about Great Lakes underwater monuments, participate in this same pattern, even when proponents do not consciously intend racist implications. By directing attention and wonder toward hypothetical ancient civilizations, these claims divert attention from the actual indigenous peoples who have lived in and shaped the Great Lakes region for thousands of years. They appropriate indigenous landscapes and histories while denying indigenous peoples credit for their ancestors' achievements. The psychology of conspiracy thinking also reinforces belief in underwater monuments despite absent evidence. When mainstream archaeologists express skepticism about the Grand Traverse Bay structures, or when peer-reviewed publications do not appear, believers can interpret this not as indicating problems with the claims, but as evidence of suppression. The narrative becomes one of brave independent researchers challenging a corrupt or hidebound establishment that refuses to acknowledge evidence threatening their paradigms. This conspiratorial framing is psychologically powerful because it flatters believers, positioning them as enlightened individuals who can see what others miss or refuse to acknowledge. It also makes the claims unfalsifiable. Any absence of evidence or contrary expert opinion is reinterpreted as proof of the conspiracy rather than as reason to doubt the claims. The believer becomes invested in the narrative not just as a historical claim, but as an identity, as someone who knows hidden truths. Finally, there is the appeal of direct connection to mystery through personal involvement. Reading about professional archaeologists discovering ancient sites is interesting, but being personally involved in pursuing a mystery is far more engaging. Amateur researchers who search for underwater monuments, who analyze sonar images, who promote theories in books or videos, become participants in the story rather than passive consumers. This personal investment creates strong motivation to maintain belief and to resist evidence that would deflate the mystery. Understanding these psychological factors does not require us to be contemptuous of believers or to assume they are simply gullible. These are normal human tendencies that affect all of us to varying degrees. The difference is in whether we are aware of these tendencies and work to compensate for them, or whether we allow them to operate unchecked in ways that lead us to accept claims unsupported by evidence. The persistence and spread of claims about Great Lakes underwater structures are not purely organic phenomena driven by genuine archaeological observations. They are significantly amplified by media outlets and commercial interests that benefit from promoting mystery narratives regardless of their evidential status. The initial reporting of the Grand Traverse Bay discovery in 2007 demonstrates how media coverage can shape public perception. Local and regional news outlets ran stories about the possible underwater Stonehenge, often using dramatic language and emphasizing the mysterious and sensational aspects, while spending little time on the uncertainties and alternative explanations. Headlines like "Stonehenge discovered beneath Lake Michigan" or "Ancient mastodon carving found in Great Lakes" create impressions of definitive discovery rather than of preliminary and ambiguous observations. This pattern of sensationalistic reporting is not unique to the Great Lakes claims, but is characteristic of how media often covers archaeological and scientific topics generally. News outlets, particularly in the age of declining revenues and increased competition for audience attention, prioritize stories that will attract clicks, views, and shares. A story about mysterious ancient monuments is more likely to go viral than a story about careful geological analysis revealing natural features. The problem is compounded by the fact that most journalists and editors lack expertise in archaeology and geology. When presented with claims about underwater structures, they may not have the background knowledge to ask appropriate critical questions or to recognize red flags like absence of peer-reviewed publication, restricted site access, or poor quality images being overinterpreted. They rely on the supposed authority of the claimant, noting academic credentials if any exist, without understanding that credentials in one field do not necessarily translate to expertise in another. The result is that dubious claims receive media coverage that implies they are more credible than they actually are. A viewer or reader encountering the story may reasonably assume that if it is being reported in mainstream media, it must have some solid basis. They are unlikely to know that the story is based on preliminary observations that have not been verified, that the interpretation is controversial and not accepted by relevant experts, or that alternative explanations exist. Social media has amplified these effects enormously. Stories about mysterious discoveries spread rapidly through platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, often stripped of whatever caveats and qualifications might have been in the original reporting. A sensational headline and a dramatic image, perhaps an artist's reconstruction of what the underwater monument might have looked like, circulate far more widely than careful analysis, explaining why the claims are dubious. YouTube in particular has become a major platform for promoting alternative archaeology claims, including the Great Lakes structures. Videos about underwater Stonehenge or lost civilizations attract substantial viewership. and YouTube's recommendation algorithm tends to lead viewers from one mystery video to another, creating echo chambers where people are exposed primarily to content supporting such claims while rarely encountering rigorous debunking. Content creators on YouTube have financial incentives to produce mystery and conspiracy content because it generates views, which translates to advertising revenue. The platform's algorithm rewards engagement, watch time, likes, comments, shares, and controversial or mysterious content tends to generate high engagement. A video making sensational claims will typically outperform a careful, critical analysis in terms of views and revenue, creating incentive structures that favor mystery-mongering over truth-seeking. Books represent another commercial avenue for promoting underwater monument claims. The market for alternative history and ancient mysteries is substantial, with readers eager for content about lost civilizations, suppressed discoveries, and challenges to mainstream narratives. Publishers, particularly smaller presses specializing in these topics, have clear commercial incentives to publish books about Great Lakes mysteries regardless of evidentiary quality. These books often follow a formula, compile various reports and claims about mysterious features, present them as if they are more credible than mainstream archaeology acknowledges, suggest that establishment suppression explains why the claims are not widely accepted, and connect the specific claims to broader narratives about lost advanced civilizations or ancient wisdom. The Great Lakes underwater structures become one piece in a larger alternative history puzzle that readers find compelling. Television programming about ancient mysteries has similarly created demand for content about underwater structures and lost civilizations. Cable channels that once focused on educational programming now air numerous shows about alternative archaeology, treasure hunting, and unexplained phenomena. These shows need content to fill airtime, and stories about Great Lakes monuments provide material that fits their format. The production values of these television programs, professional filming, dramatic narration, CGI reconstructions of what ancient sites might have looked like, lend an air of credibility that is not warranted by the actual evidence. Viewers may assume that if a major television network is airing a show about these discoveries, they must have been verified. They do not realize that the shows prioritize entertainment over accuracy and that claims are often presented without rigorous fact-checking. Tourism and local economic interests also play a role in some cases. Communities near alleged underwater monument sites may benefit from the publicity and from visitors attracted by the mystery. Gift shops sell books and souvenirs related to the legends. Tour operators offer boat trips to the areas where structures are supposedly located. These economic benefits, while typically modest, create local stakeholders with interest in maintaining the mystery rather than in definitive resolution that might conclude nothing unusual exists. It is important to note that not everyone promoting these claims is engaged in deliberate fraud or exploitation. Many individuals genuinely believe the claims and are sharing what they think is important, suppressed information. But the commercial and media ecosystem creates structural incentives that favor promotion of dubious claims over careful critical analysis. and these incentives shape what information circulates and how the public understands these issues. The Great Lakes are not empty wilderness, but are the ancestral and current homelands of numerous indigenous nations, including the Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, and many others. These peoples have cultural, spiritual, and political relationships with the lakes that long predate European contact and that continue in the present. Understanding their perspectives on claims about underwater monuments is essential for ethical and accurate engagement with the topic. Indigenous peoples of the Great Lakes region have profound traditional knowledge about the lakes themselves, their formation, their characteristics, their moods and dangers, and their central place in cultural and spiritual life. This knowledge is not abstract but practical, developed over thousands of years of living in intimate relationship with the lakes. It includes detailed understanding of weather patterns, navigation routes, fish and wildlife populations, seasonal changes, and the locations of resources. Indigenous traditions also include spiritual relationships with the lakes and with specific locations within and around them. Certain places are sacred sites for ceremony, for gathering medicines, or for other spiritual practices. The lakes themselves are often understood not merely as resources, but as living beings or as the dwelling places of spiritual powers toward whom humans have obligations and with whom humans must maintain proper relationships. These genuine indigenous traditions and relationships are not the same as the claims being made about underwater stone monuments. When proponents of the underwater structure theories invoke Native American traditions, they are typically either misunderstanding indigenous spiritual concepts or appropriating indigenous cultural authority to support claims that do not actually come from indigenous knowledge systems. For example, some versions of the underwater monument claims suggest that indigenous oral traditions speak of ancient stone circles or of peoples who built monuments before current inhabitants arrived in the region. This misrepresents indigenous traditions, which do not generally include these specific claims. When indigenous traditions speak of the lake's formation or of ancestors' relationships with the landscape, these are not references to lost civilizations building Stonehenge-like structures, but are cultural narratives about origins, about the shaping of the landscape by spiritual and natural forces, and about the continuous presence of indigenous peoples in the region. The appropriation is harmful in several ways. It takes indigenous cultural authority and uses it to support claims that indigenous peoples themselves are not making. It substitutes invented narratives for genuine indigenous knowledge, which is already marginalized and too often ignored. It positions non-indigenous amateur researchers as the interpreters of indigenous tradition, rather than centering indigenous voices in discussions about their own history and cultural knowledge. Moreover, the focus on hypothetical ancient monuments diverts attention from genuine indigenous history and from contemporary indigenous communities and their concerns. The Great Lakes region is home to tribal nations that continue to assert sovereignty, to maintain cultural traditions despite centuries of suppression and assimilation pressure, to struggle for treaty rights and environmental protection, and to contribute to contemporary society while maintaining distinct cultural identities. These living indigenous communities and their histories deserve attention and respect. The Ojibwe people's history of wild rice harvesting, of seasonal migrations around the lakes, of resistance to removal pressures, and of maintaining language and culture despite enormous challenges is far more significant than speculation about underwater stone circles. The Ho-Chunk nations returned to traditional homelands after forced removals, the Menominee's sustainable forestry practices, the ongoing work of all Great Lakes indigenous nations to protect water resources and to assert treaty rights. These contemporary realities are what should command our attention and respect. The underwater monument claims also participate in the broader pattern of denying indigenous peoples credit for their ancestors' achievements. If impressive archaeological features in the Great Lakes region are attributed to lost civilizations or ancient visitors rather than to indigenous peoples, this continues the long history of refusing to acknowledge indigenous technological sophistication and cultural complexity. The actual archaeological record of indigenous presence in the Great Lakes region is rich and demonstrates sophisticated adaptations to a challenging environment, extensive trade networks, complex social and political organization, and substantial cultural achievements. This genuine history does not need embellishment through invented monuments, and such inventions actually diminish rather than honor indigenous heritage by suggesting it is insufficient and must be supplemented with fantastic claims. Respectful engagement with the Great Lakes and their history requires centering indigenous voices. Learning from indigenous peoples about their traditions and knowledge, supporting indigenous sovereignty and treaty rights, and recognizing that the significance of the lakes is grounded in thousands of years of continuous indigenous presence rather than in hypothetical vanished civilizations. It requires being clear about the difference between genuine indigenous tradition and modern claims falsely attributed to indigenous sources. It requires supporting indigenous-led research, education, and cultural preservation efforts. It requires advocating for policies that respect indigenous authority over cultural resources and sacred sites. And it requires being willing to learn actual indigenous history rather than preferring exotic fantasies that appropriate indigenous landscapes while marginalizing indigenous peoples. One of the most challenging aspects of addressing claims like those about Great Lakes underwater monuments is maintaining appropriate balance between healthy skepticism toward unfounded speculation and openness to genuine mystery and to the possibility of future discoveries. This balance is not always easy to achieve, but it is essential for both intellectual honesty and for fostering productive scientific inquiry. Science advances through a combination of imagination and rigorous testing. Researchers propose hypotheses, sometimes quite speculative ones, about how things work or what might be found. These hypotheses then guide investigation designed to test whether the proposed ideas are supported by evidence. Many hypotheses are disconfirmed, the evidence does not support them, and they are abandoned or modified. But some are confirmed, leading to new knowledge, and sometimes to major advances in understanding. The key difference between this scientific process and the promotion of claims about underwater monuments is the relationship to evidence and the willingness to revise beliefs when evidence contradicts them. A scientist proposing a hypothesis does so tentatively, designs investigations to test the hypothesis rigorously, and stands ready to abandon or modify the hypothesis if evidence does not support it. The goal is to find out what is actually true rather than to confirm what one hopes is true. In contrast, many proponents of the underwater monument claims seem to have decided in advance that the structures are real and are ancient monuments, and they interpret all evidence through that lens. Ambiguous sonar returns become stone circles. Natural rock textures become carved images. Absence of confirming evidence becomes evidence of suppression. The claims are immune to falsification because every observation is made to fit the predetermined conclusion. This is the difference between genuine mystery and unfounded speculation. A genuine mystery is an unanswered question where we acknowledge uncertainty and seek evidence to resolve it. We might wonder whether human-built structures exist in areas of the Great Lakes that were above water during lower lake-level periods. This is a legitimate question, and we investigate it by conducting systematic surveys, examining discovered features carefully, and letting the evidence guide our conclusions. If we find structures, we document them rigorously. If we find no structures or only natural features, we acknowledge that finding honestly. Unfounded speculation starts with a desired conclusion that ancient monuments exist, and then searches for anything that might be interpreted as supporting that conclusion while dismissing contrary evidence. It announces discoveries before proper investigation and peer review have occurred. It continues to promote claims even when expert analysis has identified natural explanations for observed features. It prioritizes maintaining the mystery over pursuing truth. The Great Lakes underwater landscape does contain genuine mysteries worth investigating. The extent and characteristics of human occupation during the post-glacial low stand period are incompletely understood. The precise chronology and mechanisms of lake-level changes are still being refined. The locations and characteristics of submerged archaeological sites have been documented only in limited areas, and much more could be learned through systematic survey. The connections between climate change, lake-level fluctuations, and human population movements offer important insights with contemporary relevance. These genuine mysteries deserve investigation using rigorous methods. They deserve adequate funding, expert personnel, and the patient work of systematic survey, careful documentation, and thoughtful analysis. They deserve to be published in peer-reviewed literature where they can be examined and critiqued by other experts. This is how real knowledge advances. The challenge is that this patient, rigorous work is less immediately exciting than claims about underwater Stonehenge. Scientific papers about glacial erratics or about adjusting chronologies of lake-level changes do not generate viral media coverage. The slow accumulation of knowledge through careful study lacks the drama of announced major discoveries. This creates a problematic asymmetry where unfounded speculation receives more attention than solid research. Part of the solution is for scientists and science communicators to do better at conveying the genuine excitement and significance of actual discoveries and of the research process itself. The real story of how the Great Lakes formed, how their levels changed, and how humans adapted to a dynamic landscape over thousands of years is fascinating and scientifically important. It deserves to be told well and widely, not as a substitute for false mysteries, but as the genuinely interesting reality it is. Another part of the solution is for media outlets and platforms to take more responsibility for accuracy. When covering claims about archaeological discoveries, media should consult with relevant experts, should note when claims have not been peer-reviewed, should present alternative explanations and uncertainties, and should avoid sensationalistic language that overstates the strength of evidence. This would help audiences understand the difference between preliminary observations and confirmed discoveries. Finally, audiences themselves need to develop critical thinking skills and appropriate skepticism. We should be able to appreciate genuine mystery and the possibility of future discoveries, while also recognizing when claims are being promoted without adequate evidence. We should understand that the absence of publications in peer-reviewed journals is a serious red flag, that restricted access preventing independent verification is problematic, and that poor quality images being interpreted as showing specific features should be viewed skeptically. The Great Lakes will continue to yield genuine discoveries as underwater survey technologies improve and as systematic investigation of submerged landscapes continues. Some of these discoveries may be surprising or may require revision of previous understanding. That is how science works. New evidence leads to new insights. But the path to such discoveries is through rigorous investigation, not through premature claims about underwater monuments based on ambiguous evidence. Beyond the questions of whether underwater structures exist and how we should evaluate claims about them, the promotion of such claims has real-world environmental and ethical consequences that deserve consideration. The Great Lakes are facing significant environmental challenges, including invasive species, nutrient pollution, plastic contamination, climate change impacts, and the legacies of historical industrial pollution. These issues threaten the ecological health of the lakes, the safety of drinking water for millions of people, and the sustainability of fisheries and other resources. Addressing these challenges requires public engagement, political will, and substantial resources. When public attention focuses on hypothetical ancient monuments rather than on real environmental threats, there is an opportunity cost. Media coverage of underwater Stonehenge is media coverage not devoted to explaining the challenges of invasive Asian carp, nutrient runoff, or microplastic pollution. Public interest in mysteries is public interest not directed towards supporting necessary environmental protection measures. This is not to say that all public attention should focus only on immediate practical problems. There is legitimate value in wonder, mystery, and exploration. But when the mysteries being promoted are based on dubious claims rather than on genuine unknowns, The diversion of attention is particularly problematic. The environmental impacts of investigating alleged underwater monuments should also be considered. Deploying ROVs, conducting sonar surveys, and potentially disturbing lake bottom sediments all have environmental impacts, however modest. These impacts are justified when they serve legitimate scientific research or when they are part of necessary activities like navigation safety or infrastructure maintenance. They are harder to justify when they serve to pursue claims that lack solid evidentiary foundation. There are also ethical considerations around the treatment of genuine underwater archaeological sites. The Great Lakes contain thousands of shipwrecks and potentially contain submerged indigenous sites from periods when lake levels were lower. These sites are cultural resources that have historical and sometimes sacred significance. They deserve protection from looting, vandalism, and unnecessary disturbance. The promotion of underwater monument claims can inadvertently encourage irresponsible behavior. Amateur treasure hunters or curiosity seekers might be inspired to search for the rumored structures, potentially damaging genuine archaeological sites in the process. Even well-intentioned amateur investigators can cause harm through improper techniques or through publicizing site locations in ways that lead to subsequent damage by others. Laws protecting underwater cultural resources exist at federal and state levels, but enforcement is challenging in the vast expanse of the Great Lakes. Public education about the importance of preserving underwater sites and about the proper protocols for reporting discoveries is essential. The sensationalism around alleged monuments works against this education by suggesting that major discoveries await amateur investigators and by portraying mainstream archaeology as an obstacle to discovery rather than as the proper channel for managing cultural resources. There are also ethical considerations around how claims are marketed and promoted to the public. When books, videos, or tours are sold based on claims that are not supported by evidence, this raises questions about truth in advertising and consumer protection. People purchasing such products may believe they are learning about genuine discoveries when actually they are consuming speculation and dubious interpretation presented as fact. The appropriation of indigenous cultural heritage and knowledge for commercial purposes is particularly ethically problematic. When non-indigenous people profit from promoting theories about the Great Lakes that misrepresent indigenous traditions or that appropriate indigenous landscapes while marginalizing actual indigenous peoples, this continues patterns of exploitation and cultural theft with long and ugly histories. Ethical engagement with the Great Lakes and their archaeology requires several commitments. It requires prioritizing truth over sensationalism, being honest about uncertainties and limitations of evidence, and not claiming more than the evidence actually supports. It requires respecting and protecting underwater cultural resources, whether they are shipwrecks or indigenous sites, and following proper protocols for investigation and reporting. It requires centering indigenous voices and perspectives, supporting indigenous sovereignty and cultural rights, and not appropriating indigenous knowledge or heritage for non-indigenous purposes. It requires recognizing that the Great Lakes are not primarily a puzzle to be solved or a source of mysteries to be marketed, but are living ecosystems, homelands to many peoples, and sources of water and sustenance that must be protected. Our engagement with the lakes should be characterized by respect, care, and commitment to both understanding and preservation. Developing the ability to critically evaluate claims about underwater discoveries, whether in the Great Lakes or elsewhere, is a valuable skill applicable to many areas of life. Several principles and questions can help distinguish credible discoveries from dubious claims. First, consider the source. What are the credentials and expertise of the person making the claim? Credentials in one field do not automatically transfer to expertise in another. An engineer might have sonar expertise but lack archaeological training to interpret what sonar detects. Is the claimant affiliated with recognized institutions, or are they independent operators? While independent researchers can make legitimate discoveries, institutional affiliation usually indicates that work is subject to peer review and oversight. Second, has the discovery been published in peer-reviewed scientific journals? Peer review is not perfect, but it is the best system we have for ensuring that research meets minimum standards of evidence and methodology. When major discoveries are announced through media outlets rather than through scientific publication, this is a significant red flag, suggesting that the claims might not withstand expert scrutiny. Third, is independent verification possible? Have other qualified researchers been able to examine the site or evidence and reach their own conclusions? When access is restricted, when precise locations are not disclosed, or when evidence consists only of low-quality images controlled by the original claimant, independent verification is impossible. Claims that cannot be independently verified should be treated with great skepticism. Fourth, what is the quality of the evidence? Are the images clear and detailed, or are they ambiguous and subject to multiple interpretations? Are there multiple independent lines of evidence converging on the same conclusion, or does the case rest on a single type of observation? The quality and quantity of evidence should be proportionate to the extraordinariness of the claim. Fifth, have alternative explanations been seriously considered? For underwater features, the primary alternative explanation is that natural geological processes created what is being observed. Have experts in relevant geological disciplines examined the evidence and concluded that natural explanations are insufficient, or have alternative explanations been dismissed without serious consideration? Sixth, what is the history of similar claims? If similar claims have been made before and have failed to withstand scrutiny, this should increase skepticism about new claims. The history of underwater monument claims worldwide shows a pattern of initial sensational announcements followed by either quiet abandonment when closer examination reveals natural features, or continued promotion despite absence of confirming evidence. Seventh, be aware of cognitive biases. Confirmation bias leads us to notice and remember evidence supporting our beliefs while dismissing contrary evidence. Pareidolia leads us to see meaningful patterns in random visual information. The availability heuristic makes frequently mentioned claims seem more plausible. Being aware of these tendencies helps us compensate for them. Eighth, consider motivations. Does the claimant have financial interests in promoting the discovery, books to sell, shows to produce, tour to lead? Does the claim serve ideological agendas, challenging mainstream narratives, or supporting particular worldviews? Motivations do not automatically mean claims are false, but they should prompt more rather than less critical scrutiny. Finally, maintain appropriate humility and openness. It is possible, though unlikely, that some underwater monument claims might eventually be verified. Science has been wrong before and will be wrong again. Maintaining openness to revising beliefs when genuinely compelling evidence emerges is important. But this openness should not become credulity. Extraordinary claims still require extraordinary evidence. Applying these principles to the Great Lakes underwater structure claims reveals numerous problems. Lack of peer-reviewed publication, restricted access preventing independent verification, poor quality ambiguous images, failure to seriously consider natural geological explanations, and pattern consistency with many previous dubious claims about underwater monuments. These problems do not absolutely prove the claims are false, but they provide strong reasons to withhold belief, pending much better evidence. Throughout this investigation, we have focused primarily on what the Great Lakes are not. They do not contain verified ancient stone monuments. The claims about underwater Stonehenge structures are not supported by credible evidence, and the narratives of lost civilizations dwelling around their shores are modern inventions rather than established history. But in concluding, we must turn our attention to what the Great Lakes actually are, because their genuine characteristics are far more remarkable than any invented mystery. The Great Lakes constitute the largest group of freshwater lakes on Earth by total surface area, containing roughly 21% of the world's surface fresh water. Only the polar ice caps and Lake Baikal in Russia contain more fresh water than the Great Lakes system. This is not merely a statistical curiosity, but a fact of profound ecological, economic, and cultural significance. The Great Lakes provide drinking water for tens of millions of people, support major fisheries, enable shipping that moves hundreds of millions of tons of cargo annually, moderate regional climate, and provide countless recreational and aesthetic benefits. The geological history of the lakes spans timescales that challenge human comprehension. The bedrock beneath them includes some of the oldest rock on Earth. The Canadian Shield formations north of Lake Superior are over 25 billion years old, formed when Earth was a profoundly different planet and complex life had not yet evolved. The basins themselves were carved by processes operating over hundreds of thousands of years as massive ice sheets advanced and retreated across the landscape. The current lakes are merely the most recent manifestation of water bodies that have existed in various configurations for the past 14,000 years. Understanding this geological deep time provides perspective on human presence and activity. Humans have lived in the Great Lakes region for perhaps 13,000 years, a considerable span by human standards, representing roughly 500 human generations, but a brief moment in geological terms. The lakes existed before humans arrived and will exist long after our species is gone. This perspective is humbling and important, reminding us that we are recent arrivals in landscapes shaped by forces operating on timescales far exceeding our own existence. The ecology of the Great Lakes represents unique assemblages of species and communities found nowhere else. The lakes are young in biological terms, having been colonized by aquatic organisms only as the ice retreated and water filled the basins. But they have since developed distinctive communities, including species found only in the Great Lakes and populations genetically distinct from related species elsewhere. The lakes support major fisheries for species including lake trout, whitefish, perch, and walleye, though these fisheries have been dramatically affected by overfishing, pollution, and invasive species. The human history of the Great Lakes region, both indigenous and more recent, is rich with genuine drama, achievement, and tragedy that requires no embellishment through invented monuments. The indigenous peoples who have lived around the lakes for thousands of years developed sophisticated knowledge of the environment, complex trade networks that moved materials across the continent, elaborate spiritual and ceremonial practices, and diverse cultural traditions adapted to regional conditions. The impact of European contact, colonization, and subsequent American expansion brought disease, displacement, cultural suppression, and warfare, but also resistance, adaptation, and the persistence of indigenous presence and cultural identity into the present. The maritime history of the Great Lakes includes thousands of shipwrecks spanning from early wooden sailing vessels to modern steel freighters. These wrecks tell stories of commerce, migration, warfare, technological development, and the dangers of navigation on waters that, despite being freshwater, can be as treacherous as any ocean. The Edmund Fitzgerald, which sank in Lake Superior in 1975 with all hands lost, remains a powerful reminder that these are serious bodies of water demanding respect and caution. The industrial history of the Great Lakes region shaped modern America. The resources of the region, timber, iron ore, copper, agricultural products, fueled industrial development. The lakes themselves served as highways for bulk commodities, with specialized ships and infrastructure developing to move materials efficiently. Cities grew around the lake's shores, becoming centers of manufacturing, commerce, and culture. This industrial heritage brought prosperity, but also environmental devastation, much of which persists in contaminated sediments, degraded ecosystems, and ongoing challenges of pollution control. All of this genuine history and significance makes the Great Lakes worthy of our attention, study, and protection. The lakes do not need ancient stone circles to be important or interesting. Their actual geological history, ecology, and human significance are more than sufficient to inspire wonder, to reward study, and to demand our stewardship and care. If we are to investigate the underwater landscape of the Great Lakes for archaeological purposes, we should understand what responsible investigation entails and what standards should be met before claims about discoveries are accepted. Responsible underwater archaeology begins with systematic survey designed to document what exists rather than to confirm pre-existing theories about what we hope to find. This means conducting comprehensive coverage of areas of interest using appropriate technologies: multi-beam sonar, side-scan sonar, sub-bottom profilers, operated by trained personnel who understand the capabilities and limitations of the equipment. It means documenting all features detected, not just those that appear interesting or anomalous, because understanding the full context is essential for interpreting individual features. Once features of potential interest are identified through remote sensing, the next step is ground truthing, actually visiting the features to examine them directly. This might involve ROV deployment with high-quality cameras and appropriate lighting, human diving if depths and conditions allow, or in some cases, remotely operated sampling equipment. The goal is to obtain detailed information about the feature's characteristics that cannot be determined from sonar alone. For features that might be archaeological, several types of analysis are essential. Close examination should document whether stones or other materials show evidence of human modification, quarrying marks, shaping, or placement that cannot be explained by natural processes. The geological context should be investigated. What is the substrate on which features rest? What is the stratigraphy of surrounding sediments? And what does this tell us about when features were emplaced and what has happened since? If features appear to be archaeological, proper documentation requires systematic mapping, photography from multiple angles and scales, and detailed recording of all observations. Samples should be collected following proper protocols for features that might contain materials suitable for dating or other laboratory analysis. All of this work should be documented thoroughly so that other researchers can understand exactly what was done and can evaluate the evidence independently. Crucially, findings should be published in peer-reviewed journals where they will be scrutinized by other experts before being announced to the public. This peer review process is not perfect, but it provides essential quality control and ensures that extraordinary claims are supported by extraordinary evidence before they are presented as established discoveries. When discoveries are made, site protection becomes important. Locations of sensitive archaeological sites may need to be kept confidential to prevent looting and vandalism, but the evidence from those sites, detailed documentation, photographs, maps, recovered artifacts, should be made available to researchers through publications and archival deposits. This transparency allows independent verification while protecting sites from damage. Collaboration with relevant communities is also essential. For indigenous archaeological sites, this means working in partnership with descendant communities, respecting their cultural protocols and intellectual property rights, and ensuring that research serves community interests rather than merely extracting knowledge for outside benefit. For historic shipwrecks, this might involve working with maritime heritage organizations, historical societies, and descendants of those involved in the ship's histories. The Lake Huron caribou hunting structures investigation exemplifies many aspects of responsible underwater archaeology. The research used systematic survey methods, documented findings thoroughly, published results in peer-reviewed journals, acknowledged uncertainties and alternative interpretations, and made evidence available for other researchers to examine. The work was conducted by teams combining expertise in archaeology, geology, and remote sensing, recognizing that underwater archaeology requires interdisciplinary collaboration. This is the standard that should be applied to investigations of potential underwater structures in Lake Michigan or elsewhere. Until the Grand Traverse Bay features are documented to this standard, and the documentation is made available for peer review and independent verification, the claims about underwater monuments should be treated as unverified preliminary observations rather than as established discoveries. The Great Lakes Underwater Monument claims force us to confront difficult questions about the relationship between truth and meaning, about what we value in stories about the past, and about the ethics of how we engage with history and landscape. There is undeniable appeal in the idea of ancient monuments hidden beneath the lakes, waiting to be discovered and to reveal the forgotten achievements of past peoples. This appeal is not simply about the physical existence of the monuments, but about what they would mean, that the familiar landscape conceals extraordinary secrets, that human history is deeper and more mysterious than official accounts acknowledge, that we might personally participate in revelations that transform understanding. But this appeal creates a temptation to believe claims because we find them emotionally satisfying rather than because they are supported by evidence. We want the underwater Stonehenge to exist, so we interpret ambiguous sonar images as confirming its existence. We dismiss skeptical analysis as closed-mindedness, and we construct elaborate explanations for why definitive evidence has not been produced. The story becomes more important than truth. This prioritizing of desired narratives over evidence is not harmless. At the individual level, it fosters habits of mind, confirmation bias, motivated reasoning, conspiracy thinking, that leave us vulnerable to misinformation and poor decision-making in many areas of life. At the cultural level, it contributes to an information environment where truth claims are evaluated based on how well they fit our preferences and identities, rather than on their evidential support. In the specific context of the Great Lakes claims, the preference for invented monuments over actual indigenous history has ethical dimensions. It allows non-indigenous people to engage with Great Lakes landscapes through exciting mysteries, while avoiding the more difficult and morally demanding engagement with indigenous histories that include dispossession, cultural suppression, and ongoing struggles for justice and sovereignty. The fictional lost civilizations ask nothing of us except wonder and imagination. They make no claims on our conscience, demand no recognition of historical injustices, require no support for contemporary indigenous rights. The actual indigenous history of the Great Lakes region, in contrast, confronts us with difficult truths about how the United States was built through the systematic theft of indigenous lands and the destruction of indigenous societies, truths that carry ongoing moral obligations. Choosing truth over comforting fiction is thus not merely an abstract epistemological preference, but an ethical stance. It means being willing to engage with reality in all its complexity and difficulty, rather than retreating into fantasies that insulate us from uncomfortable truths. It means valuing actual indigenous history and supporting indigenous peoples rather than substituting invented alternatives. It means directing our wonder and attention toward what is genuinely remarkable about the Great Lakes, rather than toward what we imagine might be there. This does not require abandoning all sense of mystery or all openness to future discoveries. The Great Lakes underwater landscape does contain unknowns, and systematic investigation will certainly reveal features and sites not yet documented. Some discoveries may be surprising or may require revision of previous understanding. Maintaining openness to such possibilities is appropriate and valuable, but openness to mystery should not become credulity toward unsupported claims. We can appreciate the genuine mystery of what remains to be discovered while maintaining critical standards for what we accept as discovered. We can be excited by the possibility of future findings while being skeptical about present claims that lack adequate evidence. The stories we tell about places like the Great Lakes matter because they shape how we understand our relationship to those places and to the peoples who have called them home. Stories of lost civilizations and underwater monuments frame the lakes primarily as sites of mystery and potential discovery, as puzzles to be solved. Stories grounded in actual geological and human history frame the lakes as living systems with their own dynamics, as homelands with deep indigenous presence, and as shared resources requiring protection and wise stewardship. The choice between these framings is not neutral. It affects what we pay attention to, what we value, and what we do. A focus on invented mysteries diverts attention from real environmental challenges, from indigenous rights and cultural preservation, and from the work of genuine archaeology and history. A focus on actual history and ecology directs attention toward understanding, preservation, and justice. We can tell true stories about the Great Lakes that are also compelling and meaningful. The story of how glaciers carved the basins and how water filled them as ice retreated is dramatic when told well. The story of indigenous peoples adapting to a changing landscape over thousands of years, developing technologies and practices to thrive around the lakes, is impressive and worthy of respect. The story of how the lakes have shaped regional history, enabling commerce and settlement, but also demanding respect for their power, contains genuine drama. These true stories are sufficient. They do not require supplementation with fictional monuments or lost civilizations. The truth about the Great Lakes is interesting enough, significant enough, and meaningful enough to engage our attention and to inspire appropriate wonder. The Great Lakes underwater monument claims are one example of a broader pattern in how contemporary culture engages with landscape and history, a pattern that reveals both our hunger for connection to place and the ways that hunger can lead us astray when not grounded in evidence and honest engagement. One lesson is the importance of public education about geology, archaeology, and indigenous history. Many people find invented mysteries compelling partly because they lack the background knowledge to evaluate claims critically or to appreciate actual geology and history. Better education could help people understand how to distinguish credible from dubious claims, how to recognize natural features that might appear artificial to untrained observers, and how to appreciate the genuine significance of actual archaeological and geological discoveries. This education should include indigenous history told from indigenous perspectives, not as a supplementary topic, but as central to understanding North American history. It should include critical thinking skills applicable to evaluating all sorts of claims. And it should convey not just facts, but the excitement of genuine discovery and the processes through which knowledge is actually generated. Another lesson concerns the responsibility of media and platforms in shaping public understanding. Media outlets that uncritically promote dubious archaeological claims do real harm by misinforming audiences and by contributing to an information environment where evidence does not matter. Greater responsibility for accuracy, more frequent consultation with relevant experts, and clearer distinction between speculation and established knowledge would serve the public interest better than sensationalism that prioritizes attention over truth. Social media platforms that algorithmically recommend mystery and conspiracy content bear particular responsibility for the spread of misinformation. While platforms cannot and should not attempt to adjudicate all truth claims, they could modify algorithms to reduce the amplification of content, making extraordinary claims without credible sources, or to more frequently recommend critical analysis alongside sensational claims. A third lesson involves the importance of adequate funding and institutional support for genuine archaeology and history. Part of what allows dubious claims to flourish is that actual archaeology is underfunded and its findings are not widely communicated to public audiences. When legitimate researchers struggle for resources, while promoters of invented mysteries profit from books and videos, the incentive structure is backwards. Greater support for public archaeology, for accessible communication of genuine discoveries, and for educational programming about actual history could help satisfy public interest in the past through accurate information rather than through speculation. This would require universities, government agencies, and private foundations to prioritize public engagement as part of research missions. A fourth lesson concerns the importance of centering indigenous voices and perspectives in discussions about North American landscapes and their histories. The marginalization of indigenous knowledge and the substitution of invented narratives for actual indigenous history is a recurring problem that will only be addressed through deliberate efforts to center indigenous voices, to support indigenous cultural institutions and education, and to ensure that indigenous peoples have authority over their own cultural heritage and knowledge. Finally, these cases highlight the importance of developing and maintaining critical thinking skills at both individual and cultural levels. The ability to evaluate evidence, to recognize when claims are inadequately supported, to understand how cognitive biases affect our judgment, and to proportion belief to evidence is essential for navigating a complex information environment. These skills must be taught deliberately and practiced continually. As we conclude this comprehensive investigation into claims of sunken civilizations in the Great Lakes, we can state definitively there is no credible evidence for ancient stone monuments beneath Lake Michigan or the other Great Lakes. The most famous claim, Mark Hawley's Grand Traverse Bay discovery of a possible stone circle with a mastodon carving, remains unverified after more than 15 years, has not been published in peer-reviewed literature, and is more plausibly explained as glacial erratics, misidentified as artificial structures. The broader pattern of claims about underwater monuments in the Great Lakes shares characteristics with similar dubious claims from around the world. Reliance on ambiguous sonar images and low-quality photographs, lack of peer-reviewed publication, restricted access, preventing independent verification, failure to seriously consider natural explanations, and connection to larger alternative history narratives about lost civilizations and suppressed knowledge. The geological history of the Great Lakes makes it certain that people lived on and used areas that are now underwater during the post-glacial period when lake levels were lower. Genuine archaeological sites from this period do exist on the lake bottoms, as demonstrated by the verified caribou hunting structures in Lake Huron. But the verified sites consist of utilitarian features, stone arrangements for directing game, artifact scatters from camps, not elaborate monuments of the kind claimed at Grand Traverse Bay. The persistence of underwater monument claims, despite absent evidence, reveals more about human psychology and contemporary culture than about Great Lakes archaeology. The claims tap into desires for mystery, for deep history, and for discovery, while also participating in problematic patterns of appropriating indigenous knowledge, attributing indigenous achievements to hypothetical lost civilizations, and preferring exciting fictions to complex truths. The actual Great Lakes, understood through geology, ecology, indigenous history, and the full complexity of their past and present, are remarkable enough to inspire appropriate wonder without requiring embellishment through invented monuments. These are young lakes in geological terms, carved by glaciers and filled with meltwater as ice retreated from North America. They are ancient landscapes in terms of the bedrock they expose and the processes that shape them. They have been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years, serving as highways for travel and trade, as sources of sustenance, and as central features in cultural and spiritual life. The lakes have shaped the development of industrial America, enabling the movement of resources that built cities and powered economic growth. They have witnessed triumphs and tragedies, from successful fisheries and commerce to shipwrecks and environmental devastation. They continue to face significant challenges, including invasive species, pollution, climate change, and the ongoing negotiations over water rights, environmental protection, and the recognition of indigenous sovereignty. These realities, geological, ecological, historical, and contemporary, are what should command our attention. They are sufficient to make the Great Lakes worthy of our deepest respect, our continued study, and our committed stewardship. They do not need mysterious monuments to be significant. For those who insist that something extraordinary must exist beneath the lakes, that official accounts are incomplete, and that hidden discoveries await, we can only repeat: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. That evidence has not been produced. The sonar images are ambiguous, the photographs are unclear, the interpretations are speculative, and the peer-reviewed publications are absent. Until and unless rigorous investigation produces credible evidence that can be independently verified and that cannot be explained by natural processes, the claims about underwater monuments should be rejected. But this rejection should not be a closing of minds. It should be a clearing of space for genuine inquiry grounded in evidence and honest engagement. The Great Lakes underwater landscape is indeed worth investigating, not in search of imaginary Stonehenges, but to understand the actual human and geological history preserved beneath the surface. What might such investigation reveal? We will not know until it is conducted rigorously. Perhaps systematic surveys will locate additional submerged indigenous sites similar to the Lake Huron caribou structures, revealing more about how people adapted to the dynamic post-glacial landscape. Perhaps new dating techniques will refine chronologies of lake level changes, improving understanding of when different areas were habitable. Perhaps studies of submerged landscapes will provide insights into climate change impacts and ecosystem responses relevant to contemporary environmental challenges. These possibilities are real and worthy of pursuit. They require patience, expertise, adequate resources, and commitment to rigorous methodology. They require collaboration with indigenous communities whose ancestors created the archaeological record and whose knowledge can guide investigation. They require humility about the limitations of current knowledge and openness to revision when genuine evidence emerges. The Great Lakes keep their secrets, not because of conspiracies or suppression, but because they are vast, deep, and incompletely studied. The secrets they hold are geological and ecological, archaeological, and historical. They are secrets that will yield to patient investigation, to systematic survey, to careful analysis, and to honest interpretation of evidence. But they are not the secrets that sensational media coverage and alternative history books claim. They are not lost civilizations or underwater Stonehenges. They are the secrets of how ice carved basins, how water filled them, how people adapted to their shores and shallows, how ecosystems developed and changed, and how the complex interactions of geology, climate, and human activity have shaped one of Earth's great freshwater systems. These are sufficient mysteries. They are enough to inspire wonder, to reward study, and to demand our respect. The Great Lakes do not need invented monuments to be sacred. Their actual existence, ancient and powerful, life-giving and sometimes life-taking, shaped by forces both geological and human, is sacred enough. As we stand on their shores and look out across waters that extend to the horizon, we can choose what stories to tell ourselves. We can choose fantasies about lost civilizations and suppressed discoveries, stories that flatter our sense of having access to hidden knowledge while demanding nothing of us except belief. Or we can choose truth, complex, challenging truth that acknowledges both the genuine wonder of these inland seas and the difficult histories they have witnessed. The choice is not between mystery and mundane explanation. It is between false mystery that keeps us in comfortable ignorance and true mystery that invites us into deeper understanding. It is between stories that center our own desires for excitement and stories that honestly confront the realities of landscape and history. It is between appropriating indigenous heritage through invented narratives and supporting indigenous peoples in maintaining and sharing their actual traditions and knowledge. The Great Lakes wait beneath the sky, their surfaces reflecting clouds and sun, their depths holding sediments and secrets accumulated over thousands of years. They do not judge our stories about them. They simply are vast, ancient, powerful, and indifferent to our interpretations. But we who depend on them for water and sustenance, who travel their surfaces and study their depths, who are stewards of their health for future generations, we bear responsibility for choosing truth over fiction, for grounding our engagement in evidence and respect, and for protecting both the physical waters and the cultural heritage associated with them. The sunken civilizations we seek beneath Lake Michigan exist only in imagination. The actual history beneath the surface, geological processes operating over deep time, indigenous presence spanning thousands of years, maritime heritage from centuries of navigation, is remarkable enough. It deserves our attention, our study, and our honest engagement. Let us set aside the invented mysteries and turn our eyes to what is actually there. Let us listen to indigenous voices speaking from unbroken lineages of knowledge. Let us support the patient work of genuine archaeology and history. Let us protect the waters themselves, whose ecological health is more important than any monument, real or imagined. And let us tell true stories, grounded in evidence and respectful of all who have called these shores home. The Great Lakes have witnessed the passage of glaciers and the arrival of humans, the rise of indigenous nations and the violence of colonization, the growth of cities and the pollution of industrial waste. They have seen much and hold much in their depths. But what they hold is not what the sensational claims suggest. It is something simultaneously more ordinary and more profound, the actual record of geological and human history, waiting for those with patience and rigor to read it honestly. That record is sufficient. The truth is enough. The Great Lakes, in all their genuine complexity and significance, require no enhancement through fictional monuments. They deserve our respect as they are, not as we imagine them to be. And that respect begins with choosing truth over comforting fiction, evidence over speculation, and honest engagement over entertaining fantasy. The waters reflect the sky above, and beneath the surface lies not lost Atlantis, but the actual Great Lakes, ancient, powerful, life-giving, and worthy of our truth-seeking, our protection, and our deepest respect.